So I mean, my nutrition was horrible. I thought it was great because I wasn't eating a lot. Like I was using my fitness pal and tracking my food. This is pre 2017, but I mean, I was probably eating like 1,400 calories a day. Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. So I thought I would do a little sit down video today and discuss the mistakes. You know, I know this is a pretty common topic, like mistakes I made when I started my fitness journey, something to that effect. So when I started my fitness journey, I made a ton of mistakes, but I am going to specifically, like I could just wrap it up in that I just did cardio, way too much cardio, and it didn't eat enough, just was too restrictive, used cardio to compensate. Yeah, probably just not like the best choices. So I'm not going to talk about that because I've mentioned that different places, and that was ongoing for a long time in my adult life. So I'm going to address mistakes that I made when I started bodybuilding. So it has been about 8 years since I adopted a more bodybuilding lifestyle, where I switched my mindset. And it didn't just switch overnight, but I switched my mindset from being a cardio queen to lifting weights. I remember the exact day that I made this decision and a conversation I had with my husband where I just was like, I'm done with the obsession with cardio. I still wanted an outlet in the gym, but I knew that what I was doing was not sustainable and it was not healthy physically or mentally. So I switched to a more weightlifting approach, but I still didn't do everything perfectly, which who would? I mean, maybe somebody would, but I didn't have all the tools. I didn't know, I kind of knew what I was doing, but I didn't know everything. And you're still learning, today, different approaches and things that work for your body. So I'm going to be looking down because I took some notes on this because I wanted this to be a little bit different than maybe what some other people have put out. Typically you'll hear like, I did too much cardio, I didn't eat enough protein. And yes, those things were true. But once I started bodybuilding or lifting weights, I wouldn't have called myself a bodybuilder back then. And I wasn't a competitor yet, but I was, and I didn't even, when I switched, like in 2017, when I made this like switch in how I approached the gym, I was not thinking about competing at all. So I'll kind of get into that, but I took some notes because I was really trying to think of how have I improved? How has my mindset shifted? How has my approach to training and nutrition, how have those things shifted? Because they certainly have, throughout the years. So first thing is, I did start lifting weights, but I still did cardio. I still do cardio, but what I mean is I probably at first, and I don't remember specifically, but I probably did something to this effect. I started lifting weights, but I just did that in addition to the cardio I was doing. And I know I would have cut back on my cardio just because I wouldn't have had enough time to do both, because there were some times where I was doing at least 90 minutes on the elliptical. I just loved the elliptical, and that's the worst cardio machine. If you do the elliptical, that's fine, but I'm not going to go into that. But I did 90 minutes on the elliptical, plus I would take classes. And I thought that my classes that I was doing were strength training, and some of them were, but I was not challenging myself in a strength training, progressive overload type of fashion. It was like a boot camp class or even a body pump class, but I was not progressing on the weights. And that's just like endurance. Like you're doing biceps for a whole song, you know, like that's not like a traditional weightlifting training plan. So I was still taking classes. I was still taking, you know, going to spin classes. I was still, you know, I was probably just working out more. Like I remember I would go to spin classes before work. This was when I was a classroom teacher still in 2017. And then I would lift weights later in the day. You know, like I just was working out probably way too much. So I was weight training, but I was still doing classes, still doing cardio, not as much cardio, but I was still doing more cardio than I probably needed, you know? So that was mistake number one. I probably didn't shift that approach until, I don't know, probably not until I got prescribed cardio and a real plan from my first coach. So I'll go into that later. The next thing I did that was a mistake is I was much better with nutrition. So like before this time, I was very restrictive on things I would eat. I guess like looking from the outside in, you might not think that because like I would still eat ice cream, but to be able to eat ice cream at night, I would just eat oatmeal in the morning, like no protein, just like oatmeal. Lunch would be like a salad, and dinner might be the only time I had protein, like with a salad, and then I would have ice cream at night. So I mean, my nutrition was horrible. I thought it was great because I wasn't eating a lot. Like I was using my MyFitnessPal and tracking my food. This is pre-2017, but I mean, I was probably eating like 1,400 calories a day and doing all that cardio and still just like not in the body that I wanted. You know, I was thin, but I was too thin and did not have muscle, and it just was like not a good look. So once I, you know, but I knew the importance of protein. I knew how to track macros. I knew all that stuff. I had been tracking food for a long time. So I was more intentional with eating protein. Like before I recorded this video, I even went back and looked into like my 2017, like my MyFitnessPal logs. I'm like, that's pretty decent. You know, I had protein at every meal. A lot of my calories back then were still low. Like there was still like 1,700, and I was looking through my MyFitnessPal, like what I was eating. One thing, I was probably too reliant on like protein treats, like protein bars, protein powder. And now I have like 1 scoop of protein powder a day, maybe 2. And protein bars, I don't even like anymore. I mean, that's not true. Like I do like the Bear Bells protein bars, but it's like, I'm only going to eat that if it's an emergency situation. And it's like, if I'm out and about and there's nothing else I can grab, and I'm not going to be able to eat a real meal for a couple hours. So, I mean, that's probably like once a month, and I don't prefer that. The macros are crap. I'd rather have 20, you know, it's like most of them are like 20 grams of protein, at least 20 grams of carbs, and 8 grams of fat. I mean, I would much rather eat a meal than just a little tiny protein bar. So but I wasn't paying attention to like meal timing. I was training fasted a lot. I remember sometimes I was training fasted before work, like before going to a school job. So you got to be there at like 7:30. I remember one trimester specifically that I would train, I would have coffee, I would go right to work and teach, and I didn't have my planning period until like the first time I had a break was after 5 classes. So it was like noon. So I was getting up at like 4, training, going and teaching all morning long, and not eating my first meal until around noon. That is insane. That's insane. So I was not paying attention to meal timing, was not paying attention as much to like food choices as I am now. Like now I really pay attention to like what I know works well with my body. Another thing that I was doing then, which I don't hardly do anymore now, is drink alcohol. I would have a glass of wine probably every single night, like just one glass of wine. I would weigh it out, I would track it, I would measure it, I would log it into my fitness pal. But yeah, when I went back and looked, I'm like, Tuesday night, 6 ounces of wine. Wednesday night, 6 ounces of wine. I'm like, why was I drinking every single night? Now I drink once or twice a week. And like this past weekend, it was a lot of fun. We went out for dinner with our friends. My best friend turned 50 and I had 2 drinks and I was like, the next day, I'm had not a hangover, but had a headache. I mean, I'm like, was I just so used to it that it didn't affect me? I don't know, because I hate waking up feeling like that. And when I'm on vacation, I'll drink probably every day, like a glass of wine with dinner. Like I do enjoy drinks. I love a good martini. I love a good glass of red wine. I love it for the taste. And like back then when I was drinking every day, like I really just it was like a habit. Like honestly, I wasn't like, felt like, oh, I need a glass of wine. Like I just did it. Like, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird to me now. It wasn't weird to me then. I remember like listening to like people like recommend like you shouldn't have a drink every day. And I'm like, I couldn't not have a drink every day. Oh my gosh. I can't. It's easy now. Like, I don't know. It just was a habit. It's like a routine, a ritual, I guess. So I never thought that I would break that. I never really wanted to break that. But being in prep, you're kind of forced to. And I was like, not even in prep. And I don't care. Like, I will not have a glass of wine today, or I didn't have one yesterday. Like, you know, I drank on Saturday when I went out. 2 drinks, and it was just gin, like just a gin, it was just gin and vermouth, no like fancy concoctions, but I'm like, yeah, I'm good for now. I don't need another drink for a while. So that was another mistake. And, you know, drinking is not beneficial. Can you still make progress and still include alcohol? Yeah, but it's not going to benefit you. There is no amount of alcohol that is going to be better than 0 alcohol. So that's that. I followed a program, but it was not customized. So I was always like buying different programs of like Stephanie Buttermore. She was one that I really followed pretty diligently. I don't know if you know Jeff Nipper, that's his fiance, Stephanie Buttermore. She was popular. She doesn't post things really much anymore, but she had a very strong like YouTube series. She would always do like those cheat days, like where she would eat like 10,000 calorie cheats and stuff. And she put out some training plans and they were good. But now reflecting back, like they just weren't specified to me and my goals. I also did, which this was probably a really big step up, as I did Mark Carroll's like bikini build. I think it's called like building a bikini body. And his wife is actually a competitor. I don't think she competes anymore, but she was in the WBFF. So that's another federation. It's not the federation I compete in, but similar-ish, you know. So he had really good programs. So I follow his program. So that was probably like 2019, 2020, around that time. And yeah, so those were good programs, but they were like cookie cutter programs that I just purchased, like the PDF or whatever. And so they were definitely good. And I was tracking, you know, I was writing things down in like a training log and everything. And I knew to like, you know, work on increasing my reps or weights, you know, and progressive overload. So that was good, but it just wasn't a specified program to me. And then the last thing that I didn't do mistake that I made is I didn't hire anyone to help me. Not until my first competition, which I actually prepped myself in 2020. Everybody knows what was going on during 2020. And in that summer, that first summer, we like had a makeshift gym in our garage. And my husband made like homemade kettlebells because he's an iron worker. So he like made like, when I'm talking like from scratch, like welded a kettlebell. It didn't look like a kettlebell, but it was iron and it weighed like 30 or 35 pounds. He engraved it for me. So yeah, we had like a squat rack. I mean, we made all this, like, it was definitely, yeah, it was like, it was crazy, but it worked. I mean, you know, you could lift some gallon jugs of milk, 50 reps, and you'd get a workout, right? So, I mean, it did the trick. So I started prepping myself, and I did my first competition in November of 2020. So that's like about 5 years ago now. And I didn't have a coach except for the very end. I hired someone to kind of peak me and like finish out like the last 4 weeks of my prep. So I don't really even count that. I mean, I pretty much got there myself. And she just kind of like dialed me in and mostly did my peak week, which, yeah. So then after I did that competition, I didn't work with her anymore or anything. And then I kind of like, I got these little hairs. You know, it was still, everything was still a lot shut down and everything. I think the gyms opened in September. So I think like September and October, I actually got to use a gym before I competed. Then after that, I took all of so it was almost 2021. I took all of 2021 off. And I hired my first real coach actually in November of 2021. So 1 whole year after I competed, I hired a coach. And that's when I got really my first like true off-season training plan for me. So yeah, so having a coach, you know, definitely helps with accountability. It helps with customizing things to you. So yeah, then I kind of moved on from there, and things, you know, even since so that was like 2022 essentially. And I've definitely just improved still from that point. Like in terms of, I counted macros then, you know, now my coach that I have now has a meal plan, which I would always poo-poo that idea. And it's not like a set meal plan, like you must eat oatmeal and eggs and blueberries for breakfast. Like that's what's in my meal plan. That's actually what I end up typically eating for that meal, just because I love that meal. But you can swap things. Like I could have, instead of oats, I could have cream of rice. It's all, you know, I could have chicken instead of egg whites, or protein powder. I could have apple instead of blueberries. You know, you can swap your foods. So it's a meal plan, but I am not beholden to like those certain foods. And I guess what I've really improved on then is, I guess, more my mindset. Like I don't do that cardio anymore. Right now I'm doing like 10 minutes of cardio. I don't care so much about the scale. I know that it's got to go up in an improvement season. Yeah, I've just continued to refine my training, really work on my recovery and my sleep. I don't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning anymore and train fasted, you know, so I've continued to make these improvements. And I'm sure if I record a video like this again in 5 years, I'm going to have things that I reflect on that I do now that I will change and, you know, have implemented some improvements. So anyways, I just thought I would do a quick little kind of recap on things that I've improved and kind of some mistakes that I made in the beginning. And yeah, I hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching and following along. Not sure what my next video will be, but I just wanted to get this one out there quickly. And so Thank you for watching. Hit all the buttons and make sure you're following me on Instagram. That information will be below. If you want to work with someone that will customize your plans to meet your goals, like I didn't do in the beginning, reach out to me because I have some room in my roster for a couple more clients. I'm almost full to where I kind of feel comfortable with how many people I'm working with. I don't like to have a ton of people on my roster at once just because it's not my full-time job, and I like to make sure that I'm always available day in and day out for my clients. So, but I do have space for a couple people. So reach out to me, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.